welcome to the Flow Party. Today,
Welcome back.
the amazing Vim, who's going to be teaching us how to do multi-step forms with no code. And today is a special party because I am co-hosting with the amazing Evil Twins. If you haven't heard about them, they are Rahul and Ben. They are little geniuses over here creating amazing, super technical products. So they will be co-hosting today. So welcome, guys.
Thank you so much, Melissa. You definitely made us seem a lot better than we actually are. Rahul is definitely the genius among the two of us. I'm just a pretty face, and Rahul's the actual genius in the brains behind the operation.
How are you, Rahul?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It's a rainy day here, so making the best we can.
So before we start with Vim, why don't you, Ben, give us a little bit of who you are, and then Rahul can tell us a little bit who you are, and then we can jump onto Vim.
Yeah, so my name is Ben. Obviously, I'm from Winnipeg, Canada. I first started using Webflow actually 14, 15 months ago. Before that, I was doing everything in like WordPress, Squarespace, Shopify, name a platform, and I probably used it before I started using Webflow. I've been doing this whole like freelance thing since 2013, and between then and now, I've done everything from like work in the sport industry to work in retail to work at New York Fashion Week to work at the Toronto International Film Festival. I've always been like the type of person where like, if you asked me as a kid what I wanted to be when I grow up, I always gave you a different answer because I was always interested in like so many different things. I would see like a fire truck drive by and I'd be like, Dad, I want to be a firefighter. And then I would go and buy like 5 textbooks about being like a firefighter and shit. And then like I would go and like see like an electrician working on a street and I'd be like, that's really cool. I want to like learn about that. And then I would go and buy like 3 books about being like an electrician. So
Nice.
it's always annoyed my friends because they always say like I'm a know-it-all because when I don't understand something, I kind of dive like deep into it. And whenever they ask me a question about all these different topics, I always know the answer to it. And they're always like, Ben, you know too much for your own good. Sometimes we wish that you were just like a dumbass, that you just knew like a little bit less.
Okay. Wait. Now let's go to Rahul. So we can give us a
God.
different
How do I lead from that? Yeah, Rahul. I've been using Webflow since like 2019 actually. I've only recently started getting serious with it, but yeah, I've always been playing around. I'm always trying to learn every single bit of design that I can, mainly because I just enjoy it. But yeah.
Nice.
We're excited to be here today.
Now, before we continue, Melissa, Rahul and I just wanted Maria II now to jump in and explain where the Evil Twins name came from, since she's technically responsible for us calling ourselves the Evil Twins.
That's easy. It's almost a one-liner, you know. I saw these 2 guys separately hanging around the party, you know, just being mean to people and sarcastic, but on their own. I'm sort of a matchmaker, you know.
At the Flow Party, it was just tough love.
Tough love. Yes, they are sarcastic. It was a British humor, let's call it, which is weird because Ben is a Canadian, so the meanest Canadian I've ever seen, right? But the 2 of them were so funny that I thought, well, why be mean alone? And I start calling them, look, here's your evil twin. And that's how it started, because they have the same kind of intelligence, humor, and sarcasm. So
Bravo. Okay, amazing. Okay, Vim. So we have our awesome special guest, Vim, today, who will be teaching us, as I said, how to do multi-step forms. So Vim, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're here, and how you got here.
Yeah, so my name is Vimalan. You can call me Vim. I'm actually from Malaysia, and I moved to the UK about 8 years ago to study. I did my college and my university in London, and I've just sort of stayed here and continued to work. I graduated last year, this time last year from university. I have a biomedical engineering degree, but whatever
Whoa.
I do right now has no relation to what I studied for 4 years. Uh, but yeah, but back in university, I did code and I knew a little bit about the web and all that. And I discovered Webflow uh, in like April 2020 during the COVID lockdown, just sitting at home,
Mhm.
and quickly found clients and just I saw where I could put a lot of the things that I learned in university with code and stuff. And
Mhm.
yeah, we launched formally 2 3 weeks ago. It is a no code form multi-step form builder. It is sort of like a JavaScript library, but just for Webflow, where you can create a multi-step form with just 4 5 attributes, and it's done. Like you
Wow.
have a very powerful multi-step form.
Wow. Well, super awesome to have you here. Thank you for coming,
Thank
and
you.
let's get started.
Sure. Let me quickly share my screen. Um, yeah, if you guys haven't yet already seen Formally, I think it was everywhere around Twitter. I kind of feel bad because I keep spamming it everywhere. But Formally, if you go to tryformally.com, you should have a landing page with all the things that you need to get a multi-step form started. And once we're done with this, we can go into like a very quick live build. So the way it works is you call in a script, which is just this. You add it to your page, and you add one attribute to your form element, not your form block, but to your form element, right here, which is data equals multi-step. And you add one attribute to each of your form step. So your individual form step in your form, you just add an attribute data form equals step, and then the last three attributes are just for your buttons. So you have one attribute for your back button, one for your next button, and one for your summit button. And that should give you everything you need to just convert any form that you need into a multi-step form. So this is how it would look with literally no other power-ups except for just the 5 attribute that I just mentioned. And we could have stopped there, but I felt like if we were going to compete with something like Typeform and other solutions out there, it needs to be better and more powerful. And so that came this whole idea of no compromise. We tried to put every feature that you need in an attribute based. So you have if you want progress navigation, which is essential in a multi-step form. If you need to let the user know how many steps they have and what step they're currently on, just add 2 attributes and that would take care of itself. Again, we are not even talking about the design, but you can pretty much build a multi-step form however you want. You can design it however you want. And then while we were running a little bit of like a beta test, like a tiny test with a few users, a lot of them mentioned, I don't want this automatic thing, like a very simple navigation. I want something more custom. Again, we added that into a feature where you can create your individual navigation item and just add an attribute to each one of them, and then that should take care of itself. And there's a ton of other features that we can take a look as we are doing the live build. But there are some on the actual documentation side. If you go to the actual documentation side, there's just another 4 5 um, power ups that's available. And then later at the end of the stream today, we will go more into conditional logic. I will show you how it works, what you can actually build with it, and when it might actually go live. And if you want to get started without learning all of this, you can just clone one of the clonables that we've already created. So there's this typeform clone, which pretty much mimics exactly what a typeform form looks like. And once you create it, you clone it, you can just customize it however you want. And there's also a new one that we put out yesterday, which is a user form sign up. So with membership becoming a feature with Webflow, it's going to be useful to have multi-step forms to sign up users. I need to fix that. See, this is what I mean. Every time I present something breaks. But yeah, so you can create so this is like a user step form, and then since it ties in with Webflow, it is Webflow forms with logic, with Webflow logic and Webflow membership. You can then submit this data to your CMS pretty instantly without relying on other third-party tools and stuff like that. So it is going to be more powerful once Webflow starts putting out features soon, which we didn't plan for, but I think we caught it in the right time. Um, but yeah, I think, do you have any other questions or anything like that before we get into the live build?
Guys, if you have questions, you can unmute yourselves or just leave it in the comments. The first question is from Phil. Formally looks great, guys. Is it compatible with Form Sparrow?
Okay, so Formally is pretty much a layer on top of Webflow forms. So whatever you can natively do with Webflow forms is what you can do with Formally. So Formally is not its own form solution. It is just a library on top of Webflow. So whatever you can do with your Webflow forms natively, if it were a normal form, you could still do it with Formally. It is not its own um, let's say its own solution like Typeform or something like that. I hope that answered the question.
I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
When you enter something into the form,
Yeah.
does the data pass through Formally at all, or does it only pass through Webflow?
So it is literally exactly how you would build it. So it passes through Webflow. So we don't get any data. We don't keep track of anything like that. It
Yeah,
is
love
just,
that.
yeah. So it's pretty much like how people use Anime.js or GSAP and stuff like that, which are just libraries on top of Webflow. This is pretty much the same way. It's similar to how FinSuite's CMS library sort of works, where they probably won't know where the data is coming from. They don't get any data submitted. It all still remains in Webflow. It's literally how this works as well.
Okay. I don't think so. Let's
Cool.
keep going.
Cool. Let's do like a quick live build just to see how easy and how quickly someone can put together a multi-step form. If you guys have been in the Webflow space, if you want to do a multi-step form, there are hacks that you need to do, like slides or tabs, or go through a whole code process to actually build a multi-step form. But with Formally, I can literally show you how quick it is to build if I get this right. Every time I do a live build, I make a huge mistake. So let's try to be the first one to actually do it properly here. So I'm just gonna just ignore all the design stuff like that. It's just gonna be very rough, very quick. So the first thing you would do is you copy the code, the script from either the landing page or the actual documentation site. You add it before your body tag, and then you save that. So your code is done. Next, I'm just gonna drop in a div. So this would be a container. I'm just gonna give it cool, and I'm just gonna grow it to the full height. So this is your container. In here, let's drop in a form block, and this is where most of the magic is going to be happening. So first of all, you would add an attribute to your form div, not your form block, but the form div. Here you give an attribute data dash form, and you just give it multi-step. So that should be done. And then inside your form div, I'm just going to remove all the elements in here, and I'll show you how you can set it up. So first of all, you will add in a div, and let's call this steps wrapper. So this is the item that's going to have all your individual form steps. And I'm just going to grow this as well. Let's make this full height, full width. Cool. And then inside here, inside your form, oh, what happened? Oh, cool. Let's do that. Okay, so inside your form step wrapper, you drop in a div, and this is going to be your step item. So these are going to be your individual form step, basically. And here, let's give it some padding. Let's give it a little bit of a color so it doesn't look the same. And I'm just going to drop in an input, and I'm going to drop in a label. So let's do like a very simple form where it's going to ask users for their name, their email, and their message. So a 3-step form. And I'm just going to make this big. Oh, what is going on? Cool. Let's do that. And to this step item, you add another attribute, which is data-form step. So all these attributes are designed in a way where it's easy to remember. And within, once you do it once, you remember the attributes, and you don't need to check the documentation again. So the idea is where we don't want you to keep jumping between different pages. Once you remember how it's built, you can just continue to do so. I'm sweating right now. I'm so sorry. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to
It's
copy.
totally fine.
Take your time.
Take a breather. Take some water. We're here. We know less than you. Always remember that. So you're totally fine.
Yeah, this
We're
is not
chilling
like a
here.
professional like conference.
Yeah. Imagine
Uh,
you're with your best friends here.
Exactly.
I don't know
We're
why I'm
not friends,
sweating
but
so
we
much.
could be.
That doesn't help.
Damn it.
Yeah. Also, nobody saw you were sweating, so it's fine.
Yeah. I don't know why it's really hot in my place right now. Okay, so we have 3 steps with 3 attributes, and now we need a way to navigate between these items. So what we'll do is drop in a div, and here we're going to drop in 2 buttons. So one is going to be a next button, and one is going to be a back button. So I'm just going to call this next, and I'm going to call this back. I think it's better if it's the other way around. Cool. And to each button, you just give an attribute, which is data form. So for the back button, it's just back dash btn. And then for your next button, is just data dash form equals next dash btn. That's it. There's 2 buttons that have an attribute. And if you have a submit button, let's say we drop in, what is it called? A form button. And to this, you just add an attribute, which is data dash form. And here it's a submit dash btn. Cool. So you have 3 steps. You have your buttons. You have your script. So this should once you publish this, this is gonna hopefully it works. So let's see. And there
Hey,
you
then
go. Yeah,
does it have to be a button element, or could it be a div with the same
it
attribute?
it could be anything. So it could be a div or a link block or button, anything that with that attribute, it functions as a back button.
Cool. Those button elements are holding me back in Webflow.
Yeah.
Can't do a lot with them.
Yeah. So it could be a link block and it still works. So that's fine.
Perfect. Thanks.
No worries. And here you go. So as you type in, you hit next, and that's all set up for you. Validation there. So we can get into like what are the power-ups that are available to make this a fully fledged form solution. But as you can see, it all sort of works right now. And you can go back, you can go next, you can submit the form. So you have a basic multi-step form set up in like 5 minutes. And here we have not even gone into the whole design part of it. You can pretty much customize it however you want. Another feature that you can also add is you can drop in a back and next button in each step, and it will still function the same. So you can so essentially it means that you can have multiple versions of this button, and they all work as one. So that allows you to build like this that formally the type form clone that we made. You can have a universal back and next button, but you can also have a next and back button within each step, so it's easy for them to reach. um, so let's get into like some of the power ups that we have created. So the first one would be, I would say the most important one is input validation. So let's say you don't want users to skip to the next step without, if if a required step, they have to give their name before they go to the next step. Again, we just built it in a way where it works with Webflow, no attributes. You just give this a check, and that would not allow users go to the next step. It disables the next button so they cannot skip, and only once they enter something inside that required input, they can go next. Same with the autofocus as well. So if let's say you want users to be automatically focused on the input field, you can just give this a tick and that should work. For emails, we have built in a little bit of a validation in there where it has to be a true email expression. So for example, here I cannot just type AS or something like that. It has to be a proper email form, a syntax like this. And again, you cannot just have dot this as well. So it has to be a proper .com or .co.uk or something like that. And in another version that we're going to add in is we want to give you the ability to reject at gmail.com. So in case if you're building this for big clients where they don't want gmail.com emails, they just want business emails, that's going to come soon as well. So one attribute, and you can remove all spam or all Gmail emails if you want to. And then finally, for let's say you have checkboxes and you want the users to check at least one item. So let's duplicate this, and let's say services, right? And we drop in a checkbox here, and let's drop in 3 checkboxes. So we call this design, we can call this development, and we can call this code. So right now, if I publish this, they can skip this step without even filling out, without even checking the checkboxes, which you wouldn't want sometimes because you want to know what services they're looking for. So there is an attribute for you to fix that. So let me show you an example here. Oh, did he even?
Hey, Vim, sorry, we have another question from Philip. Go ahead, Philip.
Oh, no. Hi, you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Philip. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. No, it wasn't any echo. Anyway, I'll say it anyway. I am building a website. So my wife has a cupcake business, and she makes, mini cupcakes and then regular size cupcakes. And there are options that you can get with the regular size cupcakes that you cannot get with the mini ones. So I'm just processing in my head, like building out a form with this type, like having a validation in this, and having the like the branching off and all that stuff, where if they want the mini cupcakes, it shuts down a whole section of the form for as far as options. All right. So that's all. I'm saying all that to say, like, I think you guys have solved my problem. And
so
trying
actually
to make my life easier.
Yeah, so for that you would need the conditional logic. So you the users can choose which branch they want to go to. We'll get into that a little bit later. This is just a form, like a very basic multi-step form, but conditional logic will allow you to do that.
Oh, great job, you guys. Well done.
Thank you. But yeah, as I was saying, like right now, these checkboxes, whether you can still skip it and submit the form, regardless if they select the services that they want. So if you want, let's say, make sure they select at least one, you add an attribute which is data-checkbox, and you give a value. Let's say 1 means it's gonna make sure there's at least one or more selected, and if you give it 2, it requires the user to select at least 2 or more before they can go to the next step. So stuff like this is all built in. So if you have any requirements and you're not sure where it is, you just go through the landing page or the documentation. Most of the features are already in. So and another feature that I think would be quite useful for UX purposes would be to allow users to go to the next step when they hit enter. So you don't want them to fill out an input, keep hitting next and next and next. You just want them to fill out, hit enter, and go to the next step. There's an attribute for that as well. So you just add data enter equals true to your form element. So this element right here, where you have data form equals multi-step, you just give it an attribute which is what was it again? Yeah, data-enter equals true, and then that would allow users to skip to the next step when they hit enter. And again, there's a ton of other features that's all around the site. Just feel free to look around, see if there's anything that's useful. If you want me to cover anything, please let me know as well. But yeah, that should give you a very basic multi-step form that you can pretty much customize however you want, without losing any of the features that you get from Typeform or any other form solutions out there. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thanks, man. This is the first time it actually worked on a live build, so I'm just proud that it did.
Difference energy.
All right, Michael has something to say. Go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to ask real quick. I noticed that during kind of the validation, like if the email wasn't complete or something like that, and maybe I missed it. Like right now, it's grayed out. The next button is. Is there any way to? And maybe I missed this. Maybe you honestly said it, but is there a way to style what that what that
The
button looks like?
inactive state.
Yeah, the inactive
So
state.
not really. So the inactive state is pretty much hard coded, but maybe we could add an
Okay.
attribute where you can override. What it basically does is it just reduces the opacity to about 20%. So it doesn't feel like you can click it, but maybe we can add an attribute later to, maybe give you the access to reduce the opacity by however you want.
I was just curious. That's not a stop for me in any way. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, all the small features, like if you like, we always open to just adding more features, and a lot of people just keep telling us, oh, it'd be nice to have this and that, so we try to add whatever we can. So yeah, that definitely would be a feature that we might add later.
I think I saw too, when it's going from step to step, that
Yeah.
animation, it looks like it's just fading up, or
Yeah.
fading in, maybe, like, is that
Yeah.
hard coded too?
Yeah, so actually there is one way where you can use, it's still not out yet, but it was in an earlier version of the form where you could use scroll into view interaction. So you could add an attribute, this scroll into view interaction like this, and every time you go next, it does the same interaction, and this would tie in right directly with Webflow, so you can pretty much customize how your step comes up. But the issue we ran into that is if you have this form sort of embedded in a page like this, in a page with a lot of interaction, it resets the interaction for every single element. I'm sorry, but every single element, which we couldn't find a way to do it. So we might add that as an attribute with like a caution saying, use this on a separate page with no other interaction, so that interaction is the only one that keeps resetting, if that makes sense. We're still sort of trying to find a way to do it, but right now it's just fade in, fade out most of the time.
Well, yeah, I think those two hard coded options, the opacity and just the fade in, I mean, they look really good. They're probably great for, most use cases out there.
Yeah.
I was going to ask one more question. Maybe you're going to get to this, but if you do have time and you guys are willing, if we could see going through the different steps, like step 1, step 2, like the active inactive progress bar, that would be kind of cool too.
Okay, yeah, let's quickly do that. So let's say you want to build a progress navigation. Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. That's pretty quick as well. So let's say we want a progress navigation on the top of the page. So somewhere on the top here, I'm gonna give this section a position relative, and I'm gonna drop in a div. Oops, div. Cool, and I'm gonna give this a position absolute. I'm gonna anchor it to the top and give a height of maybe 10 pixels. Let's make that 20 pixels. So let's call this progress wrapper. So it's gonna wrap all the progress indicators inside. And to this, you give this attribute, which is data form equals progress. So go here, data form equals progress. That's it.
And is this
now,
purposely not inside the form div?
Yeah, so most of the time you would probably want it outside of the form div. You can have it anywhere you want, but most of the time it's consistent to keep it on one place, so it's always at the top or the bottom or something like that.
Oh,
But
because then it's not fading in either.
That's one thing that would be an issue, is that every time it goes to the next step, it actually no. As long as it's not inside the step item, it won't fade in and fade out. Only
Okay.
step. Yeah. So if you let's say you had it inside the steps wrapper, it will still function normally. So it won't fade in and fade out. And I can show you an example after this. But yeah, inside the progress wrapper, you add in another div, and let's call this the progress indicator. So these are going to be the individual indicators that you need. And I'm going to give it a height 100%. And for the width, what we would normally do is give the progress wrapper a flex box, a flex setting with horizontal stretch and left align. And then each individual progress indicator, you will just say, grow if you can. Like that's the only thing that you would need, but you can pretty much style it however you want. So let's give the inactive state a sort of a faded out white color, and then to this inactive state, you give this attribute, which is data dash form equals progress navigation. So if you copy progress indicator, sorry, this is the attribute you give to the individual step. Sorry. And let's say, and we want a current state as well. So what we would suggest doing is copying and pasting the indicator. So make sure there's only one indicator with that attribute, which gets replicated automatically with the code. So you don't need to match the number of steps that you have. And then to the other one, I'm just going to give a current class combo class. So it's current, and I'm going to make this fully white. So you have two indicators only, but you have 4 steps. And on the when you go publish, it's going to automatically populate it for you. So if you see as 1, if I go next, it's 2, if I go next, so it does that for you. And if, let's say, this is too simple, you want something more custom, you can pretty much customize this individual indicator, and you can give each one an attribute for it to work. So for example, in this example, each indicator is custom. So you cannot just duplicate one and have it as an indicator. So what you do is you style each of the indicator, and then you give each one this attribute, which is custom progress indicator. That's the only only attribute you give it. And then on the actual site, it just sort of toggles the current state between each step. So one thing you got to do is you got to match the number of steps you have to the number of indicators you have if you're going to be doing the custom route where you have more control on how it looks.
Yeah, I built one of those slider multi-step forms, and I hate using sliders for things they're not meant to be used for.
Yeah, especially when let's say you have like a required input on slide 1 and you're on slide 4 and you cannot submit it. It doesn't throw the error. So yeah, definitely run into that issue as well. So here you don't have to worry about it. So you can't enter, it's going to throw an error. Same with the email as well. You can't just enter without filling it in. So it's all your error and all that just functions normally.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for showing me that.
No worries. Yeah, that should cover most of the features. And let's look at like some examples as well, just in case, just to show you what else we could do. So if you do go to the clonables that we have made, so if you go to the platform clonable, you should see. So let's go view it in Webflow, and let's say view the live site as well. So again, everything is built with attributes. There's no any code or anything like that. It's everything what we offer. So if you look down here, you can also have this sort of step indicators as well. So it shows step 1 out of 9, and you can actually use this to even label your questions as well. So if you have 10 questions, you don't want to go in Webflow, add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can just give this text block an attribute, which is data text equals current step. And then that's just going to automatically populate it with the current step number that you're on. So this would be 1. And as you hit enter, this will be 2. So it sort of does that for you automatically. What other features that we have here?
I think Robert, you had a question?
No, he answered it for me. Thank you.
Oh.
Okay.
I'm good. Thanks.
I believe Christian had a quick question. Is it possible to use FinSuite's filter attributes to build logic based on the clicked elements of the step before?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Is it possible to use FinSuite's filter attributes to build logic based on the clicked elements on the step before? So based on what you've answered on the previous.
Oh, okay. So for that, we have our own conditional logic add-on, which, let's get into it. I think everyone's pretty curious about it. So everyone wants to add conditional logic to your site, meaning to your form, meaning depending on what they click, they have a different branch that the user wants to go to. So if, let's say, you have a form, let's take the whole cupcake business. So let's say you have a form and your smaller cupcakes come in this sizes and your bigger cupcakes only come in this 2 sizes, and you want to create that branch, you will need conditional logic for it. And we have built that in. It's gonna launch. The beta one's gonna launch end of the month. It's a bit of a delay because we ran into some issues. And the final launch, the actual live one, should go early next month in November. So, and here's what you can actually build. So let's start off with something simple. Let's do a quick quiz like this. So this was all built with no code and using Formly. So let's start the quiz, and you can say, "Are you broke?" Yes, and it's just going to tell you go get up and cook. Whereas if you start the quiz again and you say, "Are you broke?" and you say no, it's going to ask you a different question. And then here you also have an option where you can say, I'm going to order it no matter what I tell you, or now I'll listen. If let's say you hit I'll listen, it'll ask you to go and cook. But if let's say you say, yeah, I'm going to order it anyways, it throws you a different answer as well. So this is conditional logic, and this is what I think everyone wants to hear about. Again, this is a very simple example, but let's go a bit crazy. And with this, you can pretty much build a game. So we built this sort of mini quiz of like, which office character are you? Does anyone want to play this with me? I've played it too many times.
Eric,
Who's up?
why don't you jump in? Play with Vim.
Okay, let's go. Eric, are you a leader or a follower? Are you usually pushed around? Do you have a lot of secrets?
Ooh.
So you're Creed. So if you watch The Office, everyone should know who's Creed. And again, you can. But yeah, if you answer another question, it just keeps going on in the quiz. So you can keep answering, and it throws a different answer depending on what you click on. And we've made this to actually show that you can have like multiple branches, and it all is built with no code. Like the whole thing is just built using Formly and conditional logic. Yeah.
Michael, why don't you go? Let's see what office character you are.
So let's go. Are you a leader or follower?
Oh man, nobody likes to call themselves a leader. I gotta go follower.
I usually push
I
around.
usually push around. I would say no. We're gonna get this. I know we're gonna get the same answers. I'll go no. I don't have a lot of secrets.
Okay. Are you a talkative?
I am. I don't shut up very much. So yeah.
Do you try to be funny?
Do I try to be funny? I'm gonna go yeah. It literally has my name on it too. I'll take it.
He's the main character, so. But yeah, if you look at how it's actually built, it's just pretty much a normal build. There's nothing else on a Webflow side that you're actually doing. But let's say I think this is a more complicated example to sort of try to explain. But if you do want to like play with it, you can go to the-office-game.webflow.io, and you can just take the quiz yourself. But let's go to the other one, which was the much more simpler quiz with maybe 2-3 options. And again, for this one, it's laid out in a way where you ask the questions, and it's sort of laid out in a way where you want each branch to go. So of course you have your intro card, and this is question 1. And let's say you're building this sort of quiz, you're not limited to yes or no. You can have yes, no, maybe, strongly agree, strongly disagree, that sort of range. And depending on which one they click, you can take them to different branches. So let's say, are you broke? There's 2 options. Either you go yes or you go no. And when you go yes, it's going to ask you to go and cook. But when you say no, I'm not broke, it's going to ask you, are you going to order in no matter what we tell you? So there's 2 options, right? And how do you set it up on Webflow? Very easy. You just give your yes an attribute, which is data go to equals broke, and your no option radio input, just give an attribute data go to not broke. And this, what it does is it tells the code, when I click on it, go to this element, go to this div called broke. And how do you tell the code to do that? To that answer, to that question that you have, you add an attribute which is data answer equals broke. So what you're basically doing is you're connecting your radio input to a div. with the same name. So you're connecting the question and you're connecting the answer with the same name. That's how you sort of look at it. So the yes is data go to broke, and the answer is data answer equals broke. So now this and this is linked, and same thing for the no option. So data go to broke, not broke. So the exclamation mark is sort of saying not broke, and you give this div data answer not broke. So it's the same. It's going to connect it as one, and you just sort of repeat that for all the other options that you have. So for this second question, are you going to order in no matter what we tell you? Yes, no. You just connect yes, I'm going to order in. It's just going to give this an attribute data go to order, and it's going to look for what other div that has the same value. So if you look at it here, data answer equals order, it is going to connect this one to this button. So when you click on this, it's going to redirect the user to this section, and it's going to hide this section. So I think that gives everyone a very easy way to sort of see how you can actually build it. And the main use case for something like this would be to build quizzes. You can build personality quiz. You can build games as well. So like choose your own adventure sort of game where depending on what you click, you go to a different part of the site. So it is quite powerful, and just excited to see how people will use it. Another option would be to actually integrate conditional logic with your multi-step form, and that is also possible. So let's say you do have a form like this, and let's fill this out quite quickly. And based on, let's say, do you have a website? Yes or no. If they do have a website, maybe you want to collect their URL. You want to collect what platform the website is on. Are they looking for design and migration? Whereas if they say, no, I need a new website, you don't want to ask all of that unwanted questions. So you can just skip them right to the option where you can just ask them for their email, just quickly get in touch with them. So that's a very easy way that I think everyone could see where conditional logic could come in a form like this. And again, all of it is no code, and it's just built with attributes. Yeah, do you have any hope that was useful, or I didn't confuse anyone?
Michael, you had a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask for the conditional logic.
Yeah.
What does that look like for me when I get those answers back? Is it just I'm guessing it's just has every different option, and the stuff that they filled in is filled in.
Yeah. So if let's say you have a yes no quiz like this, on your backend, it's just gonna depending on which one they click, it's gonna. So if you give your group name, let's say we call this broke, and we give this an option value of yes, and then we give this an option group name of broke, and option value of no. On Webflow, you're gonna get all the answers, but if you can give them a proper group name and a value, it should be pretty easy for you to sort of break down on what option they chose.
Sure.
Yeah.
And my other one I was going to ask, I think I just saw an attribute that was a radio or data radio delay.
Yeah.
But what's the oh, yeah, I probably should check the docs,
Yeah.
But
So for that,
maybe you can just tell me what that means.
Yeah. So for that, it's very, very simple. So for example, let's say you're building a quiz like this, where everything is, these are all radio buttons, and you don't want the user to click leader and then click next, and then click yes and then click next. You don't want them to do that double click. You just want them to click yes and go to the next step, no, go to the next step. You just give this attribute, which is data radio skip equals true to the parent wrapper. So for this one is radio group wrapper. Inside here, you give the attribute data radio skip equals true. So what it does is whenever you click on a radio input, it's just going to redirect the user to the next step. And on top of that, there's another attribute that you can add, which is to control the amount of delay that you want. So if you add data radio delay and you give your delay value in milliseconds, so 350 milliseconds, it's going to give a 350 milliseconds delay before the user go to the next step. So if you look at it, when I click on it, there's a little bit of a delay, so I know which option I clicked, and it does go to the next step.
I like that. I feel like you guys thought of a lot of little detailed things.
yeah, there's just a ton of like, it's like took, to be fair, the functionality, we were done with it in like a week or so, and we wanted to put it out, but then there was just a lot of minor things that just sort of came up as we were trying to build things ourselves as well. So this radio input wouldn't have come up if, we just built one example and just left it at it. And some of it was from the community as well, so a lot of people signed up for the beta test on Twitter, and they gave a lot of feedback and they used it on their projects. So that's where the this form step text came from. Even the delay actually came from them, because initially we had like a default of like 250 milliseconds, but then someone was like, I don't want them to I don't want a sort of delay, I just want them to go there instantly. So we added that attribute as well. So it sort of came from a lot of people that helped us very early on by signing up for the beta test.
Awesome. Yeah, it's super helpful. Thank you.
No worries.
Amazing.
Thank you.
What else? That's it?
That's it. One other feature is that is going to come out soon is form memory. So let's say you do have this type form, and let's say someone fills up halfway and they just leave. We're going to do a way where you can add an attribute to remember this form inputs using cookies and storage, local storage, so that when they come back in, they don't have to fill it all again. They can just skip to wherever they left off, and then they can continue to fill out the form. That is coming in. If you haven't told it anywhere else, so it's only exclusive for this one.
I love that, because that's kind of like the same feature of Apple, of like the paste the code from the text messages. It's kind of like so thoughtful, attention to detail. Love it.
Thank you. Again, that came from a lot of like feedback when we launched formally. A lot of people emailed asking, when, how would you do something like that? We didn't think of it, honestly, to be fair. So credit doesn't go to us, but yeah, that's definitely coming soon.
Nice. Well, that was amazing.
Does anyone else have any more questions for Vim before we let him go? Oh, Juniper has a question, Vim. Can it make new CMS items?
Yeah, so if you do have access to Logic, you can actually do it. I do have access to Logic, but I don't know whether I can show it, so I'm not going to. But yeah, if you imagine, if you do create a Logic flow on Webflow when it goes live, for example, if you do take the this user sign up form, you can, once it does go live, you can pretty much create CMS items just using forms itself. So membership would work like that, where it just goes through the CMS using Webflow logic. So yeah, that's definitely possible.
Nice. Let me tell you something. This website you guys did here, oof.
Which
Who
one?
designed it? The
Yeah,
Formally
it's so
website.
good.
Oh,
I wanted to ask about the 3D. Who did the 3D header?
Yeah, this one, right? Yeah, so I designed this with the help of a 3D friend who does 3D work for us. So he did the 3D animation based on our sketching, and I developed it as well. So I designed and developed the site.
Who's the 3D friend?
His name is. He's from. So he's from Brazil. So his name is Gustavo. He's on LinkedIn only, so I'm not sure whether he's on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, his name is Gustavo. I forgot his last name.
You got to get that guy on Twitter. He'd blow up. This is great.
Yeah, he's really talented. Yeah, he's super great. He's really helpful, really friendly. He is one that helped create this in like a couple of days, because it was a very last minute thing that I sort of had. Before this, the site looked completely different. It didn't even have a header or anything like that. But yeah, he definitely elevated the site to something else.
Drop the link, man. Everybody wants some of that.
Will do. I don't know if I can open my LinkedIn now, but yeah, I will definitely share the link once I stop sharing my page.
Yeah, he needs to get on Twitter for real. He's about to have 50 connections.
He's really talented. He's super good. Yep, I got it. Gustavo Rodriguez.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Vim. That was super amazing. I loved it.
Thank you.
Rahul
you.
is so English. He's like,
Oh yeah, we're fancy around here.
well, thank you so much. We're going to stop the recording on YouTube. Thank you so much for coming.
No worries.
And now we're gonna do our little after party that I'm sure everybody's looking forward to. Whoever wants to stay can stay. Whoever has to work, go to work.